Hi.
Hi.
I'm 34 years old. How old are you, Harold?
I'll be 22 the 7th of July. I'll never be 22, will I?
Well, we can't bring anybody back to life, Harold. Nobody can. Okay, a lot of people down there would like to know why you did this. You mad at somebody?
It was a nice day.
Yeah. You into drugs, Harold?
I don't do that. I don't hang around with those kind of people.
Can you tell me why you did this?
Yes. You promise you won't tell anybody else?
I can't promise that, Harold. It's my job to find out.
Well, I'll tell you anyway. God told me to.
This is the emergency podcast system. This is not a test. Movies are bombing all over the country. They are posing as movies you already know. They may already be in your theaters, your neighbor's home, or even your own. Do not panic. Specialists have been dispatched. They will help you identify these pretenders and defend you against this invasion of the remake. Please stand by for further instructions.
Welcome to the Invasion of the Remake podcast. I am your host, Jason Bishop, and with me today, as always, is Sam Stepanenko.
Telling you what to do as always.
And back from Los Angeles is Trish Conklin.
Yeah, I do what the fuck I want.
You had a good time in Los Angeles?
I did.
Other than the food poisoning?
Yes, overall, it was pretty good. It was pretty good, other than the food poisoning. It was a good time. I do want to go back because those 2 days, I had plans for everything, but
Yeah, you can't plan for food poisoning.
no, you can't.
No.
Nor
can't.
should you.
I mean, really, the oxygen in LA might give you food poisoning.
It might. Well, I did do one thing very movie related, which, I mean, we'll talk to you later, but another thing I did that was very movie related, I went to the Griffith Observatory, which has been in a lot of movies.
Oh.
You will know it when you see it.
Very cool.
Yes.
So you did movie tourism.
Sort of.
That's
yeah.
kind of cool. I kind of want to do that sometime. You know, I've seen on some of my special features where people will go to the site of a horror movie. And
Yeah.
That's kind of fun. I mean, I wouldn't specifically go for it, but I might research places to go if it's at my destination.
Well, it was kind of a twofer because I like planetariums. I really do. It had the Leonard Nimoy Event Horizon Theater.
Oh.
Yes. And a whole bunch of stuff on space and eclipses and yeah. So the nerd in me was super happy.
Oh, yeah. I'm a theme park guy, so I'd be hitting
Did that too.
Disneyland, Universal Studios. I like riding roller coasters and anything that leaves my stomach somewhere else. Those are fun.
I did a few of those for sure.
I'm sure you wished you had. The problem with food poisoning is you're very aware of your stomach.
Well, I did it before I got food poisoning, so I was happy then.
Okay, good. Yeah, you don't want to be doing those rides when you have food.
There was no way I could have done it afterwards. There's several of them that there was no physical way, because there was one in Harry Potter World where you're really twisted around, and I didn't have food poisoning. I was like, oh, the motion here is making me a little nauseous. So if I had food poisoning, I'd be spraying a ride, and that's not good.
No.
Looks like something out of a horror movie.
Speaking of, we're kind of doing one. We're doing a Larry Cohen movie here this week called God Told Me To, a.k.a. Demon, from 1976.
Yes. I like God Told Me To better than Demon.
Yeah.
Just for the record.
Yes.
Me too. This was one, I don't know, I was just kind of fishing around. Sam had mentioned a director last week to me, and I think we've had that conversation before, because every time I look up his stats, I'm like, oh, there's not much here that I want to remake, maybe 2.
Mm-hmm.
And then I go, wait a minute, his buddy Larry Cohen's got lots.
Yes.
I'm like, what is this? I've never heard of this before. And boy, was I glad I picked this one. I thought this might have been one of the best Larry Cohen movies I've ever seen.
I think so. I mean, if you watch the right version where it looks good,
Well,
I mean, there's
76.
decent shots. Yeah, I didn't feel it dragged.
Really interesting story. Even without the stuff at the end, it's still an interesting story.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. It's the story of this cop investigating these unpremeditated murders that don't seem connected in any way. And the killers keep sticking around. And when they're asked, why did you do it? They say, God told me to.
Yeah.
And thus the investigation begins. And it only gets weirder from there.
Yeah. Like they'll stick around or they might kill themselves. The other part is they'll usually, with the exception of one guy, die right after they say those words.
Yeah, we've got this opening with the sniper in New York City on a water tower, kills about 15 people. It's a striking scenario because it's all too real in today's world.
When I saw that, I was like, oh, and God told me it's just Tuesday.
Yeah,
That's what it is.
It's a hard scene to watch because, unfortunately, those type of things happen with far too much regularity.
It's very
As much as twice a day right now.
Yeah,
Jesus
it's not.
Christ.
It's not a shocking. This is just freaking a normal goddamn day.
Yeah. So, I mean, Cohen was already thinking about this back in the 70s, and nothing has fucking changed.
Nope.
But yeah, we open up with this water tower sniper, and he goes up the tower to talk this guy down and kind of make that connection. We get the God told me to line, and he takes a header off the water tower.
Yeah.
And there's this wonderful pullback on that shot into the room of the cop waking up from that nightmare. You're not sure if it was a dream, but it was. It was just something that haunted him. And it was, wow. I mean, this is a great shot for Larry Cohen, who shoots on the cheap.
Yeah.
And you could tell he was still shooting on the cheap, but he did a lot with what he had this time.
Oh, yeah. Did he ever?
Yeah.
There was some stuff I'm like, wow. I mean, I've always kind of enjoyed Cohen's movies, but there were some shots in this movie and some transitions that I'm like, oh, I didn't know he had this in him.
Oh, yeah. That's why it didn't, because I knew reading the credits that it was him, but it didn't feel as much like him, strangely, because it was, I don't know. He was really going for it on this one, and I applaud him.
Yeah,
It was good.
didn't look to see who his cinematographer was, but I wonder if that was a factor as well.
Yeah, actually, I probably should have looked that up myself.
Because that's always something you should, like when you see stuff like that, you have to give some credit to that cinematographer for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, obviously. Yeah. Larry should have been working with this guy like all the time, 24/7.
Right? I wish he would have taken some more time to have a longer shoot with this and maybe get some of the proper permits. That really annoyed me because clearly the extras in the background didn't know they were extras. They were just shooting in the city, hoping not to get nailed, and they were just spiking the camera left, right, and center. It was a bit annoying. Sometimes it makes sense in the context of the scene, but other times it's like, oh boy, man, I really wish you had a close set on this.
True. But I mean, sometimes I was watching this, but sometimes I'm going, well, with Michael Bay, I sometimes just tune out because I can't figure out what the hell's going on either. So at least here I could follow all of it.
Yeah, I mean, he had this tradition of shooting without permission everywhere. So,
well, isn't it the St. Patrick's Day? He did a lot of stealth shooting.
Yeah, which Andy Kaufman makes his film debut. And speaking of why you should have closed sets, you have Andy Kaufman dressed as a cop. And he used that to his advantage to the point where people were jumping over barriers to get at his ass because it wouldn't be Andy Kaufman if he wasn't pissing somebody off.
Yep.
And this was like, was he on SNL at this point in time?
Well, he was never a regular on SNL.
No.
But had he made his TV debut?
I don't think so.
No, because it was started off in Taxi, didn't he?
Yeah. Which was after this.
Which was after.
So, like, literally, he was already testing out his shtick. Like he was doing this stuff when you watch like Man on the Moon and stuff, you realize like this, he was always like this.
Oh yeah.
So to hear that kind of story, I'm like, yeah, I'm not surprised.
If he didn't get reaction from people, it felt like a failure to him. It's a very strange way to think.
Yeah. So back to the God Told Me To killers. Sniper on the water tower. We had the supermarket mass stabbing, which we did we see much of that?
We didn't see it
I
at
just heard
all.
about that. That was an investigation.
Yeah, he's just in a tent, an oxygen tent, and dies.
And then there was the mass shooting at St. Patrick's Day, which was the cop who pulls out his gun during the parade. And that was Andy Kaufman. And then the man he talks to who murdered his wife and children and had no remorse whatsoever.
Nope.
No. That guy was
like
creepy
when
AF.
they have this, and that's the thing, when they have this weird possession of God Told Me To, they're in complete bliss about this.
Well, and the other thing too, and because they make a point of saying it in the movie, is how was he making those shots with that shitty 22 rifle?
Yeah.
Because he was way up on that water tower and he was hitting people on the street. So he also somehow abused them with extra ability, because nobody of even of normal skill or exceptional skill would be making shots like that with that gun, is what they were saying, right?
Yeah. And
22 is hard.
And if somebody can hypnotize, let's just use that word for now, hypnotize somebody into doing this atrocity that they would never otherwise think about or even be capable of, it does make sense that you could even imbue the skills into them to do so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what was it? This made me think of, is it Pusher? There's a movie called Pusher where they do what they call a push, which is making people do things they would never do, which I find quite fascinating.
And possibly could even have been inspired by this.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, in fact, there was a director, a fairly well-known one, who wanted to remake this movie, and it approached Larry about it. And, still a young director, French director who hadn't really made a name for himself, but he has now. His name is Gaspar Noé.
Wow.
Oh.
Man, would he have done something with this?
Oh, I'm seeing a lot with the alien. I'm seeing, I think he could bring you into like the blissful kind of haze of the person doing it. I could see him doing that.
Oh man, and my head was reeling about like how to remake this and who would be really good at it. And,
it was tough.
It took me to places that I'm like, oh boy, there's some people who could play with this. But part of me would just like, after I watched Joe Bob and watched Perfect Blue just last night, and after watching it, like, I was thinking, I'm like, our movie would make a great anime.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah, this would.
Yeah.
Really could.
You could do a lot with it as an anime.
Yeah, you really could.
Oh my God, yeah. You could do so much. You could get into mythology behind it. The abduction scenes would be insane. You could do insane stuff with animation.
Abduction scenes? What?
I know, I got there early, but what are we going to do? You started with animation and that got me there.
Well, I guess if we got you there, I should probably run the trailer and catch people up a wee bit. We'll be right back after the trailer for God Told Me To from 1976.
On December 25th, 1953, a child is born, a virgin birth. Tomorrow, all civilization will tremble under his almighty power. He must be obeyed.
Who were Moses and Jesus really? Accept me, no questions. Sacrifices to your God are nothing new.
Are you going to tell me all those people are meant to die?
Why did you attack all those people? God told me to.
God told me to.
And we are back. That was the trailer for God Told Me To from 1976, written and directed by Larry Cohen, who we have talked about many a time. The first time was episode 6.
The stuff.
And then 286.
Cute.
No, that was 186. 196. Body Snatchers.
That's right. Actually, I'm not doing these in order. And then 288.
It's Alive.
Yeah, they were only 2 episodes apart. And yeah, 196 was...
Cute. The Winged Serpent.
That's right. If I had done these in proper order, you would have got it right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you would have gotten it right, exactly. This one feels a lot like in the way it looks and feels. Feels like Q a lot to me.
Yeah, tonally, I think I'd feel the same way about that. Like, tonally, this felt like a lot like Q. And maybe this was the movie he was shooting at the time and then did this other low-budget movie because they were in New York.
Yeah.
I can see him doing this.
Maybe
at
he was
the same
doing
time.
the double duty on it.
Yeah.
Pulling a Corman.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Corman, it is a New World Picture, so
Yeah.
it would have been, this came out and was released by Corman's company. Yeah. But, I mean, this was produced by Larry Cohen as well. In fact, there were 2 other producers who took their name off of it because the God thing tends to creep people out and they don't want to be connected with it. But,
boo-hoo.
but yeah, so the distributor was still Roger Corman, and boy, he makes his appearances here a lot on the show, so much so we never list which ones we do because there's too many of them.
Yeah, just go look at the list.
Yeah, there's a lot. If it's cheesy, chances are Corman's got his finger in there somewhere. Dirty.
Well, think of a Corman movie. What would that mean to you?
It's not trauma, Trish.
I don't know. There's some Corman that has a few.
This actually was started under production with Robert Forster as the star.
Oh, really?
But he didn't get along with Corman at all, and he's like, yeah, God's telling me get the fuck out of here. Because Larry's one of those shouters type of directors, apparently. Yeah. And yeah, it just wasn't jiving, so he went to somebody he worked with before, and Tony LaBianco plays the main character of this, Peter J. Nicholas. He was also in Nixon, The French Connection, and Serpico.
Yeah, he's got a lot of good stuff.
70s, like, those are some big name stuff.
He's very 70s. That's the thing when I'm looking at this movie, I'm like, yeah, that's
Nixon was
a 70s lead.
Yeah, he worked right up until the early to mid 2000s.
Yeah, he had a great career. Deborah Raffin plays Casey Forster.
What are the odds?
I don't know if that was on purpose or not. The Casey character is the girl he's seeing on the side.
Yeah.
So he's not the squeaky clean cop.
Well,
but
okay.
There's an interesting backstory with that.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah, we will. But it does make him kind of unlikable when you realize it. Mm-hmm. She was in Dance of the Dwarves.
Okay.
Actually, it's Dwarfs on IMDb. So is it Dwarfs or Dwarves?
Dwarves is
I don't think any of them are proper anymore.
No.
Yeah. Well, when you're talking about the fictional creature, yeah.
Yeah, she was in Grizzly 2, The Predator, Scanners 2, The New Order, and Death Wish 3.
Ooh, sequel girl.
Yeah, she was. Sandy Dennis plays Martha Nicholas. She is the wife of our main character. Yeah, we'll piece that together for you in a little bit. She was in 976 Evil in episode 207.
The Out of Towners.
That's right.
And she is in one of the best movies ever, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. Yeah. She has made a career out of having shitty husbands.
Yes, she has. Sylvia Sidney, a wonderful elderly actress, played Elizabeth Mullen. She was in Mars Attacks and Beetlejuice. As Juno in Beetlejuice.
Beetlejuice.
Yeah, he didn't show up. Sam Levine plays Everett Lucas. And Sam mainly was in these sequels for The Thin Man. Mm-hmm. So, Shadow of the Thin Man, After the Thin Man, but not The Thin Man.
Another sequel person.
The Thin Man gains weight.
Yeah. The not so thin man.
The not so thin man. Thin man goes to the carnival.
Slightly chubby man.
It's like Ernest movies. The thin man goes to Washington.
Thin man goes to fat camp to become thin man again.
Thin man versus Weight Watchers.
Robert Drivis was David Morton, and he was in Cool Hand Luke and The Illustrated Man.
Which I would like to do.
We're not doing The Illustrated Man. It's an anthology.
I still like to do it. Because it's such a great book.
They are not tattoos. They are illustrations.
I haven't seen this anthology. I must watch it. I love anthologies.
Each tattoo tells the story. Illustrations. It's George C. Scott line.
Well, it's like one Tales from the Crypt episode.
Richard Lynch plays Bernard Phillips. We've talked about Richard a couple of times. First time was in episode 41.
The Sword and the Sorcerer.
And then not that long after in episode 59.
Halloween. Yeah. And for some reason, I thought we'd seen him in something we did recently, but I didn't see it in the list. But like as soon as I saw him, like, we just talked about him, but we didn't.
Yeah, maybe it just came up in conversation because I was thinking the same thing when I was doing the notes on this. But yeah, this was like one of his first roles because he's barely in this thing.
Well, yeah, he's barely in it, and you don't really get to see him.
No, there's like one close-up, but he's
bathed in light almost all the time.
Yeah, he looks like a Simpsons character. Yeah. He's very yellow.
Well, he's yellow and he's bathed in light and he's they've done something with his face to make it less featureful.
And George Patterson is Zero. He's a street gang leader and he was in I Drink Your Blood.
Ooh.
And of course, Andy Kaufman was in this. This was his first role.
We could do mishmash new movie titles. I Drink Your Blood because God told me to.
I stopped there, but I don't know if Sam's got a few.
I did find one more. I can't remember what character he played, but Harry Belliver was in the stuff as well.
Okay, that makes sense. Yep. Larry Cohen did like to work with the same actors, so yeah.
Yeah, because they can put up with a directing style, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
See, if they work so well together, why does he keep shouting?
I don't know.
They just let him shout.
Yeah.
And just do what he tells them to.
Now
but
somebody
if they already know how to do what he tells them to and they work well together, why the fuck does he keep shouting?
I mean, lots of directors, that's their style. Now somebody records it and then, oh no, they get canceled for being difficult. I'm like, guys, you know what? Stop being babies and do your fucking job. Otherwise, the director won't yell at you.
It's sort of like, I just hate the directors who have to yell, or the ones that play mind games. If you have to play mind games, you're not very good at your job.
I don't think Cohen was like that. He's just very direct. And maybe he didn't have a megaphone.
Well, that's true.
If you're shouting, you might be far away.
We don't
know.
Well,
we weren't there.
We already know how low budget he likes to work, so it's quite possible that he said, I'm not spending the money on a megaphone. I can just shout really loud.
Well, and here's the thing. You can yell at me as long as it's not like, you're not like doing a dressing down. It's like, no, move to the left just a little bit. Yes, there you go. You've got it.
And we do know how directors will try to do things to pull an emotional thing out of you, right?
Yeah, I just hate the ones who will go so far. Yeah, no, as long as you're yelling something instructional, then I'm fine. When you're being mean to me.
Yeah, when I heard Robert Forster was originally cast, man, this would have worked with him too.
It would have worked with him as well, yeah. I mean, the actor that was in the role did just fine.
He was great. Yeah. Not a traditional leading man. But something
he's a traditional 70s leading man.
Yeah.
When I saw him, I'm like, this is definitely a 70s
It is something you could do in the 70s. You could draw people in just with a good story. Or you would think, because this movie did not do well at all.
No.
I don't know what the bank was on it, but they had to re-release it with a different title. So.
But everybody's, you know what? I think performance-wise, everybody's doing really well.
Yeah, for its low budgetness. Yeah, it did not review well at the time. Maybe I'll read one later.
Okay.
But I dug this thoroughly. Now, yeah, you've got this cop who's estranged from his wife, has his own apartment. He's got a side girl. Clearly, this has been going on for a while.
He's not estranged. Here's the problem I've never been Catholic, so I don't know what the mentality behind this is he's left her. They're not estranged, but he's left her. But since divorce is a sin, this is just what's happening.
Yeah, there's a lot of religious iconography in his wife's house where, he sometimes goes.
It's not hers, though. It's
his stuff, yeah.
It's all about him. He's not going to divorce her because he doesn't want to. He thinks that's bad.
Yeah, and he
can fuck around as much as he wants.
And she's fully aware of it and the luck he has with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and there's this beautiful bit where his side chick, his girlfriend, doesn't know that he goes to church every Sunday.
Yep.
She has no idea how steeped in his faith he really is.
And we don't really see a lot of it. We hear a little bit about it, but it doesn't seem to intersect with his investigations a lot because that's where the focus of the movie is. And maybe there should be.
And that was one of the things that I thought was missing was they bring this aspect of his life and personality up, but they don't really do anything with it.
No, there's a few things that just feel very shoehorned in.
Yeah.
And I think it was just a case of time and money. And sometimes you do feel like you're jumping from scene to scene awfully quickly. And it does make you feel like that there's something missing, a transition or something.
Yeah, and I think that they had a good idea there, and then maybe it even made it onto paper, but never made it onto film.
Yeah.
Or didn't make it through the editing room.
Yeah.
Whatever that history has been lost with Larry Cohen, so we'll probably never know. But
because I mean, you only really even get a hint of it is sort of at the end when you realize he was so religious because he thought, oh, God was talking to me the whole time. But that was just what he was. It had nothing to do with God.
In the course of his investigation, he's brought from one crime to another, and he's more and more haunted by these words of God told me to. But slowly he's starting to piece together. He gets a name of Bernard Phillips and goes to see his mother.
Yes.
Who just attacks him.
Oh, yeah. Tries to stab him and kill him.
Yeah, so that doesn't go well. And that conversation does not happen because she dies in that encounter. Everybody dies in this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to make it that much harder for him to get to where he's going.
Yeah. There's also this weird cult of rich people that are surrounding this. I don't know if they're supporting him. They are supporting this guy, but they're also being controlled by this guy.
Yes.
They haven't done the whole God told me to crimes, but they're funding this guy.
Yeah, he's controlling them in a different way.
Yeah.
He is, but here's the funny bit, and I think it's hilarious and something that should be addressed in our film, is these guys are wealthy, but there's that level of entitlement where it's like, oh, God chose us. We are very important. Aren't we so special because God chose us?
Oh, yeah. That's an interesting observation.
We're wealthy because we're so special, and we're wealthy and we're good because God chose us.
Can we cast like Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk in those roles?
Absolutely.
I mean,
we cast them, but we just edit them out and put other people in.
Well, there was one who was tipping him off.
Yeah. Yes, he tells him about the cop.
Yeah, but he was also told to tip him off.
Yeah.
Because this
it was a
rich
test.
cult, they are trying to actually recruit Bianco.
Yeah, because they have to recruit. Well, we'll get to it. These people are they think it's all for the greater good too, because they talk about like, well, God teaches us more when he's mean to us than when he heals somebody. Like they get into that whole debate.
Yeah, the cruel God versus the benevolent God.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of like really deep touchstones in this film that sort of, again, like I said, they tap on it and then they move on.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you actually just mentioned something there because that was an inspiration for the film in the first place. Is the Bible is quite cruel. Like God is a very violent God in that. And Chariots of the Gods as well also inspired this. That kind of inspired Cohen to write this script.
Yeah. Was it around this time where people were publishing those books about how maybe religion isn't religion, it was just aliens a long time ago?
Well, that's actually in the movie where he...
Well, this I was wondering.
Because during the course of his investigations, his superiors aren't having any of this.
Mm-hmm.
Like the religious implications are just like, what? So God literally told these people to do it? Are we supposed to go arrest God and just shut him down? He's actually suspended.
Yeah.
So he goes to the press, who's initially a little reluctant to do anything with that.
He goes to the science guy, which I find fascinating.
That's right. He went to the science guy and said, hey, you've talked about ancient aliens.
Mm-hmm.
So why is this any different? And that does lead him on a path of ancient aliens believed to be as gods. Yep, here we go.
Yep.
Well, at which point, I'm probably getting some of the timeline mixed up here, but he goes to see his dad, who was a patrol guy on motorcycles. But then something happened, he couldn't ride anymore. But he tips him off to a friend who had picked up Phillips's mom when it first happened, like 1951. When does that happen in the movie?
We do see the flashback of the 1951 abduction first.
Okay.
And that's of Bernard Phillips. His mother was basically found wandering in the street naked.
Mm-hmm.
And she was taken.
And a virgin. Don't forget they were virgin births.
Yeah.
Yes, they were virgin births. So we are under the assumption that they were abducted by aliens and then inseminated and then returned back home. Figure they would have clothed them first.
They're lazy aliens. I mean, let's be real.
But you know what? Cohen doesn't make this pleasant. Like, it is still a violation. It still feels like rape.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. It's not right.
No, and they're upsetting. And then a little bit later on, we find out this was where things feel a little too convenient and maybe should have been seated earlier, that our cop is actually adopted. And his birth mother was also a virgin birth, and she was abducted. And we do see her backstory from 1941, and where she was abducted coming home from the World's Fair.
Yes, which I find, and I do like that twist in the story. I love that, but it brings the concept of what do you do if you have godlike powers? Like, in whose hands are they even safe? I mean, he was very religious, kind of taught to be good. I think that was kind of why he was into the God told me to do it killings, because he was like, why would God even do that? That sounds ridiculous.
Yeah, and I think that's where we need to bring his faith into it a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he's questioning it now, because if God is actually telling people to do these things, what does that mean to him?
Yeah, I think he should have always been aware that his parents weren't his original parents. I think we should have a backstory, maybe even flashbacks with him maybe being taken in by nuns and stuff before being adopted by a very pious or religious family. Because that also plays into who he is, and he has this, because of this history in his life, even though he's not aware of it, it seems to be ingrained in his DNA, and he's afraid of having children.
Yes.
Yeah. And you know what? Maybe we don't even have parents. Maybe he just grew up in an orphanage run by nuns.
And I'm fine with that because it explains the religious implications.
I think it tightens it up really nicely.
Yeah.
And instead of going to his father, he can go speak to the mother superior from the orphanage.
Yeah, because then it can still lead towards this woman.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it can also be the other part of why he's afraid to have children, because he's like, if there isn't somebody there to be there their entire lives, it sometimes doesn't go well. Like, because he could have been abused by other people when he was at the orphanage. I'm just saying. It's a Catholic thing.
And even if there isn't abuse, there's still a detachment in a situation like that. Like, there's never that parental love. Mm-hmm. So, I kind of like that. It adds to his reluctance to have children, sure.
Yes. Mm-hmm. But it makes him want to be married and have somewhat of a family, because it gives him a connection to somebody.
The irony is he has a girlfriend who he is intimate with.
Yeah.
Quite happily intimate with. But if he's Catholic, he's taking a risk of becoming a parent every single time.
Oh, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so you could really lean into that torment as well.
Yeah, yeah. And I can see where the title of Demons came from. Because he certainly got his own.
Yeah. Everybody in this movie is fighting their own personal demons.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
My own personal demon. Sorry.
I thought you were going to do like some soft shoe, like some more musical. It's my own personal demon.
Demon pops out. Hello, my baby. Hello, my honey. Hello, my ragtime gal.
Oh, I started something, damn it.
Nobody thought this was going to become a musical.
Demons are all the while. Baby, you are on fire.
Very appropriate, very appropriate. But there's some psychological stuff that's in this movie that I think is underdeveloped. And that's where some of these scenes feel like they've been shoehorned in. Like the fact that he realizes he has powers. We don't see the gradual. It's like, oh, maybe I have it too.
Well, it's only because he meets Bernard, and Bernard can't do anything to him. And that's sort of how he realizes.
Yeah, that brought the house down.
Yep. Literally.
Literally, yep. Yeah, and I kind of like the idea of him having odd things that he understands about himself, but still doesn't understand. It's like maybe he gets a sense of that's why he's such a good cop, is because he can tell when somebody's lying to him.
Yes.
Right? Little things like that.
Yeah, I like that.
Or why, and also why he goes to talk to the shooter, because he's never had a problem with the shooter.
Yeah, no, he's able to
He's negotiated people jumping.
Yeah, he has sort of an empathy that the people respond to.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. Like in that situation, it wouldn't be the detective anymore. It would be the negotiator. So they're kind of two different jobs.
Yeah.
So I was a little surprised that he was doing that at all.
He was doing it against everybody's advice. Remember?
Oh, yeah.
That's true. That's right.
He just went on up. And that would play in with this fact that he knows that he's good at this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? He doesn't know why. He just knows that he is.
Yeah, maybe. Oh, that would be interesting if he tried to talk the guy down, but because he'd been pre-programmed, it caused him physical pain because the cop's own innate ability, even though he was unaware of it, was trying to push this guy into coming back down.
And it was conflicting with what I like that.
And that's why the sniper jumped.
Yeah.
And that's something you won't know until you meet Bernard.
It's a subtle little piece of acting that you can throw in there.
You could. And when you get to Bernard could say, you know what, you killed him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right? You're the reason that he died.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, you caused him pain.
Yeah.
Or at the same point, too, he can be with Bernard is like, you put him up there. Not my problem.
Oh, yeah.
Have the human part of him be like, no, it's your problem, asshat. You did this.
That'd be an interesting conversation where Bernard's like, you killed one of my children.
Yeah.
Because he truly believes he's a god.
Yes.
If
Peter
nothing
doesn't.
else, he's a glowworm.
If nothing else, he's a glowworm.
Yeah. Yeah. He's a lot of glowiness.
I like the idea of him feeling like he's a god, but maybe let's tone it down on the lights.
Exactly. Well, when they described him, it was Gorman's mother, which I kind of want a little bit of a sub story where Gorman's mother just keeps bugging him. My son wouldn't do this. My son wouldn't do this. Because can you imagine the agony of having a child that you've known for so much and doing something so out of character?
Yeah, there's bits of that too, where maybe she can play a little bit more. I mean, those are good things where she could be talking to the press and whatever, but and that's something the press is actually quite important, and maybe we need to have that character a little earlier. Yeah, a connection to the press, because when Bianco goes to the press after being shut down on his investigation, he's potentially causing a panic.
Oh, and he does. But what made me think about this too is like, yeah, he doesn't need to be a glowworm. I kind of pictured when she was describing him is, long hair, bell bottoms, no shoes. She mentions no shoes. Yeah. Just like a regular kind of hippie look. You wouldn't know him from anybody else.
Well, it's perception being thrust upon the victim. Mm-hmm. So in their minds, yeah, sure, they're going to describe this godlike figure bathed in light, the long golden locks,
but she doesn't describe him as that. She describes him as being blurry. She doesn't describe him as that.
Well, it's because bathed in light, you're not seeing the big details. And I have no problem with the long golden locks and maybe a little bit of that, but to the audience, to Bianco, to Peter Nicholas, the character, the perception should be of a normal human being.
Because he has no power over him.
Oh yeah, normal and just pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the way I cast.
Me too.
I cast pretty, somebody who does look a little bit ephemeral. Ephemeral? I can never say that word.
Ephemeral?
Ephemeral, that's the one.
That's it. I know, I have trouble with that one too. Yeah. I have to do it once or twice to get the right.
You see
it's the emphasis.
Yeah. Emphasis.
Ephemeral.
Ephemeral.
Ephemeral?
Actually, I'm not even sure that's what you're going for. I think you're thinking ethereal.
No, I was thinking.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just showing off words now.
I know.
Ethereal would work though.
Yeah. And honestly, I think most of the movie he should be portrayed like that because we're only really seeing him through his eyes.
Yeah.
The main character's eyes.
Yeah. This is a weird, supernatural thriller, but it's very much a cop procedural for 80% of the film.
Yes.
Very much so.
But we're seeing him being haunted by these deaths and confronting his own history.
Yeah.
And there's a bit of a descent into madness. I was afraid that it was going to get into a bit of a Scanners scenario.
No, and I love that they just stayed away from that and had just that final moment and then that very final moment, which was just brilliant. Yeah, no, that was the best way that they could have ended that film.
Oh, I like the idea that it was just hand to hand because he can't do anything to him. That's the beautiful part.
There was an interesting bit there where clearly this character had not ever experienced conflict.
Or another one of his own.
Yeah, I'm talking Bernard. Yeah. Not just one of his own, but just conflict because he could just make people do whatever he wants. If somebody got into his face, he would tell him to go away. Like, imagine that kind of power, like the Purple Man in the Marvel show that David Tennant played.
You're a comic guy. You should remember this.
I know, right?
Well, guy, David
Jessica
Tennant.
Jones.
Oh, yeah, Mr. something.
Well, he's the Purple Man in the comics.
Purple Man, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because, he can make anybody do anything.
Yeah, so imagine somebody who thinks they're a god.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, you can make anybody do anything. Of course you're going to think you're a god. Nobody's ever said no to you.
Yeah, so any physical pain would have happened through accidents that he did to himself, but certainly not from others.
Yes. And the fact that he wouldn't know how to fight.
Yeah.
That would be fascinating because he'd be like, why are you doing this? I can do it.
Yeah, there are some great elements in here. And I think there's, especially the way this movie ends, because Bernard is interested in Nicholas, not because they have this shared history. There is a brotherhood there
and
of the virgin birth, but Bernard is hermaphroditic in a very strange way because he's basically got a vagina where his kidneys should be. And he wants to start a new race with Nicholas. This is some weird ass shit. Like, now we're getting into some Cronenberg body horror territory.
Yeah, and I loved it.
I did too. I might be projecting my hand here because I definitely went with a Cronenberg director.
Yeah, no, that was bizarre because they do at that point reveal he's reticent to have his own children, but Bernard tells him, oh yeah, if you had kids, they'd be just like me.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like he knew it in the back of his brain that that's what would happen and he didn't want it to.
Yeah, I love that because Bernard makes a point of pointing out that he has leaned more into his human side than his alien side. And he still does. He still thinks of himself as human regardless of the circumstances of his birth. Right? And that's what makes Peter special.
Well, I don't think Bernard understands his own history either.
No.
He thinks because of this virgin birth that Jesus Christ was born in a similar vein, so he thinks he's the new coming of Jesus.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't say that, but they certainly imply that.
Oh, they imply that.
he
just by the way he looks.
Yeah, they imply that he is of godlike being. He is the direct descendant of angels.
Well, they have.
So he's not aware. He's not made the connection to the abduction.
Well, the obstetrician, what's funny is when he's talking to the obstetrician about Bernard's birth, the obstetrician's like, oh, yeah, no, there's basically every religion has a virgin birth in it. I'm just saying. Yeah. They've been happening like all over the place, okay?
Which is kind of fun because it kind of ties into the story that way as well. Because these virgin births might be real because of the circumstances of these two characters.
Yeah.
But I love the idea of Bernard not really understanding the circumstances of his birth and actually believing that it was angels and not aliens.
Yeah. And that's where I feel like you need to have some scenes. We have to move the camera off of Nicholas's shoulders there for a bit so we can see some of Bernard's connection to his history and his beliefs and why he is the way he is. And maybe his interactions, even if we don't reveal what he looks like right away. Like some of his interactions with these innocents who wind up doing these killings.
You know, you could still kind of do that without revealing Bernard too early in the film. Instead of having his mother die right away, is she could just have a little bit of dialogue we're saying, well, the angels gave him to me. Right?
Yeah.
Just something that simple.
Yeah. And think about that with an abductee who becomes pregnant afterwards. And that trauma might erase the memory of the aliens per se.
You could have it where she's in this ship. It's a bright kind of white room, white light. What are you going to think?
Yeah. So, yeah, it could be just as simple as that, is that she genuinely believes that they were angels and not aliens.
Yeah. If she was a very religious person, that's what she would think.
And then that just cleans up just a little bit that it needs to be cleaned up.
Yeah. It cleans it up really nicely.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, I would like to see him walk into a church and generally act like he owns the place.
Yeah,
I think that would be a great moment.
This movie, really, all it really needs is smoothing out a little bit here and there, where you're just higher quality of production and little bits of the script to tie things together a little bit better, so it doesn't feel so haphazard and guerrilla shot. Yeah,
and it felt in this movie there was a bunch of stuff cut out with his girlfriend. It felt like she was doing more things. And she was in the midst of doing things, and you see shots of her, but we didn't get to see the things.
Yeah, and you see her having conversations with his superiors about him going to church and all that stuff.
And that's it. But there's other stuff she's out
And
doing.
it doesn't take you anywhere anyhow.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, here's a character, we got a wife and a girlfriend who do come together at the end.
Yeah.
As she's concerned and lost touch with him. And we need to see him not coming home to either one of them as he's lost in this investigation and he becomes more and more obsessed with it. That obsession's taking him away from the person he cares about and the person he's still attached to.
And he still cares about her.
He does.
Yeah.
So this triangle's inevitable. And I felt that scene didn't pay off as well as I would have hoped. Yeah. But you're right. We need to see more of her and tracking him down and maybe initially giving enough of the investigation at the early stages of how much this is affecting him.
Yeah.
And you know what? Maybe he has things like, because they talk about him being a Catholic and having strong faith, maybe she follows him to church where he's giving confession. Right? Like,
I made her kind of a journalist because I wanted her to maybe do a little bit of investigating into him because she wanted to know what was going on.
Yeah, why not? You know, it all doesn't have to come in from his side.
Yeah.
And then she can say, hey, I've tracked down your parents.
Biological mom.
Yeah.
There you go. That would be clean and simple.
Yeah, that would, tighten, again, clean it up just a little bit.
Just enough to say, hey, and then it forces Peter to go back to the nuns and ask more questions.
Exactly.
And then track down the mom who's in her late stages of Alzheimer's, maybe, or I don't know.
No, she was just
an old lady.
Just an old lady that was triggered. But that scene was great.
Yeah, that scene was so good, especially when she revealed that she had remained a virgin her entire life.
Well, and she didn't want people to touch her. Yeah. And my heart broke because she just felt so violated. She never wanted to be touched again.
Yeah. And that's the worst part. She didn't even know what happened, but she knew she was violated.
Yeah.
I know.
I mean, we see the effects of the rape that happened with her. And not even from a human species. Yeah. So that's something I've never seen in a movie before. We hear about these abductions and sometimes the experiments and the insemination. We've seen horror movies about it. We've seen just normal science fiction movies about it. But we don't see that trauma. I almost feel like that should have been in the flashbacks. He didn't have the budget for aliens and stuff. Yeah. I mean, even the ships were stolen from Space 1999.
Yes. But the emotional agony of it is also really fascinating because she has been inseminated. This is a child, even if you have a baby naturally, from what I've heard, it's like having a freaking alien inside
and
you.
She literally did.
An alien parasite.
Maybe she wasn't alien, but it was experimental DNA that's been put inside of her to create this new being. And what is that outcome? I'm actually surprised we didn't see the aliens come back to investigate the outcome. I'm not sure that's important, though.
Well, I mean, if you really wanted to ground it a little more in reality, it doesn't even have to be aliens. It could be the government.
I could, yeah. I mean,
but I like the aliens personally.
I did too. It was such a strange offshoot, and it does create all sorts of pathways for psychological horror as well as body horror.
Yes. And honestly, with the aliens, you do get that religious aspect. You've been taken up into the sky.
Yeah.
Something has happened to you.
I love the idea of this mysterious religious crimes being done and initially thinking this is some strange serial killer that has sway over people and then suddenly turning into a different movie.
Well, it does, yeah. But at the same time, it doesn't. It's because it also grabs onto the whole Manson thing and the power of charisma to get people to do things that you wouldn't expect them to do.
Yeah, and that's the really interesting thing. You can play on those beats and have him travel down that path initially, looking for an actual
who he thinks
person.
is a cult leader, right?
Yeah.
Not a being.
And then you get, again, the higher ups in the cult. I'm very special. Yep. That's why I'm in the higher up part of the cult.
Yeah. Oh.
And now we have Scientology. Aliens.
Yes.
Cults.
Yeah.
Oh, damn.
But I don't know what thetans are, so that's going to be weird.
I want to go back to Peter for a second, and maybe because he has these powers, he's been subconsciously influencing the people around him, the people he loves, the people are pushing them away. And maybe this is why his wife is so accepting of his infidelity.
But also so angry at him.
And also angry. subconsciously, not even sure why. This is maybe because he's angry at himself, but pushing your own emotions and your own psychological issues onto somebody else and then having it reflected back to you by the characters around you. What an interesting thing to do.
Absolutely.
And that could also be something we put in Casey, who I think's a fascinating character as his girlfriend.
It could have been. She was kind of
wasted. I felt like I liked her almost immediately, despite I didn't like what he was doing with her. And that creates conflict of, your hero. It's interesting to play on that, to see how much he's been pushing her, or maybe he drew her in and she wasn't interested, or all these different ideas of maybe he was traveling down the same path that those aliens were. He's and pushed himself onto somebody subconsciously.
Yeah, he's completely unaware of how he's doing it or what he's doing, but he's doing it anyhow. Right?
And maybe that's why she's starting to do those investigations into him himself, because she's feeling an anger that doesn't come from. Yeah, she's feeling things that aren't natural to her being. Yeah. But we'd have to pull in some of her friend circle. I almost want to put the focus on her.
Kind of, yeah. Because she's,
or at least equal time.
How fascinating. Yeah, at least equal time. Because, you're right. Like, it would be interesting to have her be like, if I wanted to be in a relationship, but I never wanted to be one with a married man, I don't know what's going on.
And an older man.
And an older man. And she's like, I want to be married. I want to have kids, and I'm running out of time, but I'm stuck with this guy.
Yeah, and it could be simple as things as like they do it in movies all the time, where she's having drinks with friends, and she's having this conversation, and she's like, I don't know why I'm so attracted to him. He's not my type. He's older than I would like, but for some reason, I'm just drawn to him.
Yeah, and having him face that realization.
Yes.
Oh my God. And that's a come to Jesus moment if I ever saw one.
And you can honestly have that, because they do sort of have that moment when she talks to the wife, because the wife is telling her, I had 3 pregnancies. They were all miscarriages. And you can probably have her being like, but I wanted to have a baby. I don't know what's going on. I'm never going to have one.
Yeah. And that helps us lead to a little bit of a break as people are around him are becoming more concerned. And by the end, after the face-off, there's again a big fire and deaths and including Bernard Phillips, who he'd been investigating, and now he is up for the murder of this man.
Yes.
Which is not the ending you expect. It's very grounded.
I love the ending. And he went to the hospital for the criminally insane.
Yeah. We don't see that. That's all like little text that you would get at the end of a movie. Yeah. And then our character went and did this and that and the other thing. And I feel like maybe we need a few shots of that.
We do. Because honestly, I think at the end of this, once he realizes he's doing this to people and he's not letting them be who they are, he actually confesses to everything because he wants to go to the hospital, because he wants to be removed.
Yeah, well, he as a deeply religious person, he's not going to travel down the same path Bernard did. He's going to feel responsible for
and try to do what's morally
his
right,
entire life. And he needs to take himself out of society to keep him from
and he divorces his wife.
Yeah.
He sets her free.
Yeah, he needs to do the right thing, and he's make sure he doesn't accidentally influence people again. Like, he gets some control at the end so he can fight Bernard.
Yeah.
But he shouldn't be as powerful as Bernard. I thought that was he got good at that too quickly. It just kind of happened. He never used it, and then he used it, and he was good at it.
We kind of touched on how it could have happened, because he is already doing it to people around him. He just hasn't been able to focus yet.
And nobody's ever been able to press their will on him because he's so good at it. Yeah. Right? So the ability's there. Yeah. Right. He's just never had anybody do it so overtly.
Yeah.
Right. And I think a lot of it was Bernard's power pushing back on himself because he couldn't affect.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it would be
Peter.
kind of like you don't know how strong your arm is until it meets up with a force.
Yeah. Although this change winds up being a big one, because what we've now done is he can't get suspended because he would be able to put that will on the captain.
Well, you know what? He could be of the opinion that he's done some crap and he needs to be taken off. I mean, who hasn't wanted to punish themselves?
And I think that's exactly right. I think that's where it comes from is he has that conversation with his commissioner or chief or whatever, and it says, my faith's getting in the way. I don't know where I'm going. And then his commissioner lets him off the hook by saying, well, why don't you take 2 weeks?
Yeah, it's not a suspension, it's a leave.
Yeah.
And then he goes to the one thing that any cop chief would not want them to do and go to the press.
Yeah.
Yes.
But you know what? That's,
I'm not even sure if that
easily
needs to happen.
That's easily solved because we've now established that his girlfriend, Casey, is a journalist.
Yeah, so he could have told her that that's what's been happening.
But he'll get the blame for talking to his girlfriend who's a journalist.
Exactly.
That works beautifully, ties it up rather nicely.
And funnily enough, people are like, why didn't he get suspended? Because he doesn't want to.
Yeah. This is good stuff.
Yeah, we don't even need the suspension then, to be honest.
No. But I mean, that's the whole thing. He's done something bad. He should have been suspended.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He did not.
Yeah, he did something that he knows better to do. And
he took some time off.
And the thing is, she's his secret girlfriend. They don't even know that.
And that's the thing that'll come out later.
Yeah, because it does.
Yeah.
Right? Because she does end up talking to the police.
Yeah. I think they sort of do know. I think it's one of those cop things where they'll talk about their wives and their girlfriends. Same guy.
I mean, we don't need that in there, but...
No, but I mean, they could know a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I like the idea of it all coming out in the course of the movie that he's not this saint that they believe him to be.
Yeah, and that is the theme of the movie. Somebody who believes their sainthood and other people who believe in his skills as being a great officer. And then the crushing realities of a flawed human being.
And the crush on him is the important thing, is it's his journey as far as that goes.
And that weight comes barreling down on him.
Oh, God, yeah.
That's where the heart of this movie lies. And there's so much meat on that bone that isn't explored in the original film.
Oh, my God. And at the end, you can kind of have him leave religion a bit behind because, I mean, he's Catholic. He doesn't need any more guilt.
No, and
he's got all the guilt he needs.
And that's why the final line of the movie is so good. Because it kind of suggests that, he's accepted the fact that maybe there is no God.
Yeah. We haven't talked about Zero because here's this side character in New York City who's got sway over a dirty cop, who winds up turning one of his guys over. Like he winds up arresting one of his guys when that's what he's paid not to do.
Yeah.
And it pisses him off. He kills the cop. And it becomes a copycat killing because this is made into the public and there's this panic and he's put God in the blood on the wall. And that becomes a side investigation for Peter. I'm not sure we got room for it now.
I was about to say, it seemed, you know what? And it kind of, in this movie, it seemed sort of out of place to me anyway.
It feels like good fodder for a sequel.
Yeah. Like it belongs in another place. It shouldn't, it doesn't really belong
And
here.
it feels like it came so late in the movie and there's no hinting of this cop doing that.
Oh, this guy just shows up.
It's so shoehorned
It's
in.
10 p.m. And then he kills him. I'm like, I don't, what? I was so confused.
How did it forward the narrative aside from showing that Peter was capable of going, well, this one's different because the killer didn't stick around. Right? Yeah. But we don't need that to tell this story.
No.
We don't need that red herring.
No, I don't think it's needed. I think it was mainly there to fill time. It's not a bad idea. No. It comes too late and there's not enough meat on that bone.
No. And all he does later is he decides to use his power on those guys and that's it. Like, I mean, I think you could lift that right out.
You know, it'd be a fun sequel that story would happen simultaneously with this movie.
Rosencrantz and Guildenstern?
Yeah. So this is another story that's happening at the same time during the God Told Me To killings.
Well, there is a tiny moment because he goes into the stairwell and the guy kills him. Zero kills him in the stairwell. And another guy walks past going to the elevators and he thinks he hears something. That guy is investigating that murder. Yeah. That's him.
Yeah, I mean, there doesn't have to be much, just little hints, and then you can take that story elsewhere. That would be interesting.
That could be interesting.
I mean, now we're just making a franchise, but a tiny one.
A tiny one, yes.
A wee little franchise.
Well, I mean, if you think about the mythology of this movie, it could be a very interesting franchise, actually.
Yeah, well, you could do this fairly easily and do what X and Pearl did.
Oh, absolutely.
Do these within 6 months of each other or a year.
But what would be great is to have one of these women that were a birth resulting from one of these implantations. Mm-hmm. And then the whole idea where they might meet another other kind. They're like, oh yeah, we can never have children. Otherwise, that's real bad.
Yeah, all sorts of interesting places we can go. I think we've really smoothed this one out, though. And the potential of a remake on this, I can't believe this hasn't been done now.
No.
I guess my only last question here is, what era do we set this in? Like the 70s was interesting, but I don't think it's beholden to any particular time frame.
Any time frame.
I like to leave it a little bit back because I'm afraid that if you do some stuff with it, we'll introduce DNA testing and it'll get a little messy.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. And I mean, nowadays you don't hear about the orphanages as much as you used to, and so that kind of loses a little bit of credibility.
Yeah,
I guess.
And I kind of like the idea of 70s, keeping it in the 70s. Well, I don't know. That just adds a little bit of
Well, and then and also that our whole idea with the cult and stuff like that was very much a 70s.
Well, I was thinking like Satanic Panic.
Yeah,
right. 80s. 80s would totally work too.
Yeah. Late 70s, early 80s would work just fine for that sub story.
Yeah, and you wanted to set it before the advancements of police investigations with DNA and whatnot.
Yeah, and what you could have too, which would be really fun if you have a very young person, it's set in the 80s. You got the 60s, all that free love. It was angels. Wink, wink.
Yeah.
Yeah, that adds a few more.
Did some acid,
layers,
saw some angels.
Okay, well, I think we are good here. We already have a pretty good movie, but man, it could be so much better with just these little tweaks, and I think we're onto something here.
Mm-hmm.
I think so.
All right, well, let us get to some casting. Sam, why don't you lead us off here?
Okay, I shall. So I'm going to start with my Peter Nicholas. I don't know. I do know why. I saw Brad Pitt in this role.
Sure.
Because I saw a bit of that 7 vibe to it. I kind of felt like it had that potential to be that dark sort of gloomy story. Mm-hmm. For my Casey Forster, I cast Melissa Fumero from Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Thank you.
For Martha Nicholas, I cast Kerry Washington. My Elizabeth Mullen, the mother, is Melanie Griffith. Mm-hmm. And then for my Bernard Phillips, I cast Austin Butler from the most recent Elvis movie because he's pretty.
Okay.
He really is pretty.
And then I also cast just a partner because he did have that partner briefly.
Yeah, I'll be honest. That a lot of those cops and stuff, I didn't get names. I didn't. I had no real.
It was hard with the names.
I had no real connection to them, so I wound up skipping them. If I could remember who they were, I cast them.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I just skipped by most of the partners and the captains and.
Yeah, because there were a lot of extra cops and stuff like that. But I wanted him to have a partner that's. At least initially, that was trying to sort of he'd bounce ideas off of and so on.
Sure.
Especially for that opening scene where he's going up the ladder. Mm-hmm. And I cast Becky Ann Baker. You'd know her if you saw her. She's one of those people that you've seen in that thing that one time. Yeah. And then for my commissioner, because I wanted his boss cast.
Oh yeah.
I went character actors for these two roles. I went with John Ortiz.
Oh, nice. I like that.
Yeah. And then for my director, because I felt that it had the potential for that 7 vibe, I went with David Fincher.
Okay.
Oh,
yep.
Cool.
That's a good choice. Yeah.
All right.
Back in the chair, Trish.
Back to my turn. Okay. So for my Peter J. Nicholas, I went with Edgar Ramirez. Okay. And only because I saw him play like a priest with him and Eric Bana in that like weird possession movie. Mm-hmm. Casey Forster, Kirby Howell Baptiste, because I also wanted to be like, she's very strong-willed. Like, why is she settling with this guy? Now it works even better. Haha. Mm-hmm. Martha Nicholas, Ricky Lindholm. You'll know her from Garfunkel and Oates.
Yeah.
And she kind of looks like Sandy Dennis. Mm-hmm. Elizabeth Mullen, the mother, Jane Badler from V, the TV series.
Oh, I don't even remember, but
she was the evil alien. She's hot, brunette.
Yeah. Oh, now I see it now.
There you go. And I thought this was, I don't know if Everett Lucas is the right name, but it was the cop who saw Mrs. Phillips that he goes to see and talk to. Stunt casting. David Duchovny.
Okay.
X-Files. Yeah, and then Mrs. Gorman, Gillian Anderson. David Morton, Deputy Commissioner Andy Samberg. Bernard Phillips, who is the alien, and I didn't know this until you mentioned Mr. Purple. I actually did cast David Tennant.
Oh.
Because I thought maybe we'd put a little makeup on him to look a little bit different. Like human-esque, but not like quite human. Mm-hmm. Harold Gorman, I made Adam, the guy I met on the picket line when I was there in LA. I don't have his last name. I just decided to cast him there because I'm like, he said he was an actor as well. Okay. I'm doing that. The board chairman, I did do a board chairman on The Cult. Christopher Walken.
Oh, nice.
Okay. And the board snitch, I don't know what his name is, Christoph Waltz.
Yeah, I mean, I could have gone crazy with the rich guy board.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I only did those two.
I didn't wind up casting anybody for that, but those are very good choices.
Only did those two. Thank you.
Yeah, they have such little screen time that that's actors pool stuff.
It would just be fun. Yeah. Like, I think they'd do it for shits and giggles.
Yeah, I would pick some wonderful senior actors for all that stuff. Yeah.
And then for director, Gina Prince Blythewood, who did The Old Guard.
Okay. Yeah, you went a lot deeper than I did. But I'm pretty happy with mine. For my Peter, I went with Jake Gyllenhaal.
Nice.
Donnie Darko, Velvet Buzzsaw.
Yes.
He likes these weird roles.
Yep.
What was the one? Oh, God. The Nightcrawler.
Nightcrawler. Yep, there's another one. For Casey, his girlfriend, I went with Blake Lively.
Nice.
From The Shallows and Gossip Girl. For his actual wife, Martha, I went with Jessica Biel.
Okay.
Oddly enough, she actually came across my potential list as well.
I see it.
Total Recall, Texas Chainsaw Remake. Go back. We talked about that one.
Yes.
For Elizabeth Mullen, you'll like this one, Trish. Lily Tomlin.
Yay!
I wanted somebody who could do slightly crazy, but really crazy, but wonderful and likable woman. So,
and she can stretch to emotional agony.
She can, yeah.
Yeah, and that was my reason behind my casting as well, is because Melanie Griffith does do crazy very, very well.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I kind of wanted, I wanted that depth of role there. For Bernard Phillips, actually, if I had cast a zero, I'm going to skip ahead here because I wasn't sure if we're going to have zero in the movie or not. But if I did, I would have went with Stephen Dorff.
Oh, nice.
There you go. Yeah.
Now, back to Bernard Phillips. I went with Matt Barr, who's on Blood and Treasure and Walker. Another blonde, pretty man.
Blonde, pretty.
Yeah.
Nice. Perfect.
Yeah. I think, that's kind of the key for that character. And for my director, I went with Brandon Cronenberg. Because
as soon as you said Cronenberg, I knew that you were going with Brandon.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. I was thinking I wanted to enhance some of that body horror, but he could play that psychological stuff really well.
Yeah,
if you've ever seen Possessor or Infinity Pool.
Yeah, Infinity Pool especially.
Yeah. That is my cast.
Yeah, what a Cronenberg could do with that side vagina.
Yeah. I mean, this movie only cost like $300,000.
Really?
Apparently. I don't know what the box office was with the re-release. Maybe it made money.
Maybe.
But it is kind of a quiet one.
This should be on any sci-fi horror fans watch list. If it isn't already on your favorites list, it should be. Because it is maybe not the most solidly made film, but in terms of story and being different, it's there.
It's there. It totally is. IMDb gives this a 6.2 out of 10.
Okay.
Which is pretty decent for a modern audience. So whatever the reassessment is, it's given some favor. What do you think the Rotten Tomatoes critics thought of it?
And Trish's eyes get big again.
Welcome back.
I know. My brain was so happy I didn't have to do this for a while. Sorry, this is critics?
Critics.
51.
All right.
I think critics would see the same way we do. Great idea, but maybe a little flawed in execution. So I think Trish is pretty on the ballpark. I'm going to go with 57.
Okay. And before I reveal that, what do you think the audience score was?
61.
Yeah. You keep taking my numbers.
Sorry.
I'm going to go with 59.
59.
It's because I was pushing them into your mind.
Ooh. Okay. Critics gave it on Rotten Tomatoes a 79%, which makes me think it is podcasters and bloggers.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because it's not the best made thing in the world, but the story certainly makes up for what it lacks in polish.
Yeah.
I mean, the acting also.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very solid acting.
Yeah. I mean, that 50-ish range, I think, is about right for me. Like,
Yeah.
I really like the idea behind it. The execution, meh. The audience score gave it a 52%.
Okay. I was close, but the wrong one.
Now, I do have a review here from 1976, and this is from one Roger Ebert. I wasn't going to see God Told Me To. God indeed seemed to be telling me not to. But then I read the press release and knew immediately this was a movie I had to see. It had been too long, I decided, since I'd seen a film in which the leading character was, and I quote, the only man alive who can make the choice to help or destroy a mysterious force which has begun to unleash its dread power upon the earth. Not since Godzilla vs. the Smog Monster had a press release promised so much. This movie, alas, doesn't quite live up to the billing. It never even quite identifies the dread power. Although from the brief glimpses I got of it, it seemed to be a hippie who glowed yellow.
As described.
But the movie does achieve greatness in another way. This is the most confused feature-length film I have ever seen. There were times I thought the projectionist was showing the reels in random order as a quiet joke on the hapless audience. But no, apparently the movie was supposed to be put together this way as a sort of 52-card pickup of cinema. The story's so random, indeed, that by the time Sandy Dennis made her second appearance, I'd forgotten she was in the film. The plot concerns a New York detective, Tony LoBianco, who investigates a series of murders in which the killers claimed God told them to kill. It turns out they're under the hypnotic sway of the child of visitors from outer space. LoBianco's assignment, if he chooses to accept it, help or destroy this mysterious force which has begun to unleash its dread power, etc. As I left the theater, dazed, I saw a crowd across the street, a young man in a straitjacket. Try not to get ahead of the story, please. Was preparing to suspend in midair hundreds of inches above the ground and to escape Houdini style. At the moment, he was still standing on the sidewalk, but believe me, it was still a better show.
Oh,
He
that's
was-
a bit harsh.
I mean,
Yeah.
he wasn't entirely wrong.
It's messy, but if you honestly just pay attention, you'll be fine.
It's kind of gratifying to see the reassessment that's going on with this film. I saw a few other modern reviews, and they kind of see what we see in it. And yeah, it's a shame the critics didn't see it. Although, granted, this is such a low B movie. I doubt it got much critical score
Well,
to begin with. I doubt a whole lot of critics even bothered watching
You
it.
know what? Here's the deal, and I think this was the problem. And like God told me to, it's a fine name for the film. It's a fine name. But what if they had plastered some sort of French title on this or foreign title and like just put the dubbing off by a little bit? It would have been seen as an art film and it would have gotten a lot better reviews. I guarantee.
Well, like as we said, the French remake, that director would have killed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. I can totally see this as like a psychological thriller anime in Japan. Like this translates fairly well to a lot of different
has-
languages and nations.
Great bones.
Yeah.
Yes.
It has great bones.
Yeah. It's got lovely bones.
Lovely bones. And like the themes in it.
I mean, it's going to be a heavy movie that's going to really, it may trigger people.
I'm
but-
still dealing with stuff in this movie. Like
Yeah.
it's still, bits are still coming back to me.
I mean, imagine how much this would have affected you if it had been done with more depth and more time given to it and some of the ideas we've implemented in our version. Like this was going to sit with you and haunt you a bit, and that's a powerful movie to do that.
Yes, it was.
I think that the press release that Ebert got is what did it a disservice. It's what brought him in, but it already revealed that there was this mysterious power. When I did not know about the aliens we're going to do this. All I read about was there's a cop who's investigating murders where all the killers said that God told them to. That caught me right there. I didn't need any more.
Yeah, that's all in the trailer.
Yeah.
It feels like this very interesting thriller.
And you know what? I was expecting a completely different movie where we see movies, I think in the 90s or so, there's one with Denzel Washington where like it's evil demons leaping from person to person and they're doing terrible things. I thought that was what we were getting in this one as well. I thought like this could go in different ways, but it went in a way I had no idea, did not expect, and I'm not sad about it. It was good.
No, I wasn't expecting the alien thing. And my first reaction was like, what? And I'm like, wait, cool.
Yeah, that opening scene on the water tower, and then the killer jumps and pushes back in through the window as our detective wakes up from that moment. And I yell down to my roommate as he's going outside for a smoke. I'm like, oh my God, I think I picked a good movie.
Yes, it is. It has good bones. But that's, you know what? That's the great thing about this whole podcast. We love seeing where there's something that has so much potential and we just need to get it a little bit, mold it just a little bit more.
Yeah.
Maybe throw a lot more money at it.
Yeah, I don't know if it needs a lot. Like, this is a movie you could do on a modest budget. I mean, by modest, I'm thinking 15, 20 million.
That's what I'm saying. But that's, to me, a lot of money.
I mean, that's because you're paying clearance. That is a lot of money, but paying clearances and things like that. But it's still a fairly low budget movie you could probably get away with. You know, you could probably even get it done with a lot less.
Well, how we've done it is focusing on character.
Yeah.
And relationships and the themes of it, which are there rather than
and as far as
into the horror.
Yeah, I mean, you can be a little more graphic with the killings, but they didn't show much of those. They talk about a lot of them, and that was almost enough sometimes.
Yeah, it was.
And you could get into some of the body horror later as the confrontations happen. But there's so little of it, it's probably not going to cost you a ton of it. No. I mean, I'm not sure how much of the alien flashbacks you want to see. I think you want to keep that from an... Actually, I think the best way to do that is you shoot from one perspective of the story that's given by Bernard or Bernard's family or whatever, from that perspective of belief that it's an angelic being. So a lot of washed out lights and things like that, not sure what you're seeing. And then you get the flashback from
the harsh
his own
perspective.
Life. The harsh
from
perspective.
His own life, where it's like it's true. It's like it's an unsanitized version of what happened.
Yeah, like gritty and dark and terrifying, like it was for her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The angelic version of it and the hell version of it. Like, you just keep that balance of biblical themes, even in that presentation.
Nice.
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, that's what we look for in movies, a movie with good bones, and I like a little bit of weird. And that's the kind of fan challenges we look for from our invaders. So if you have a fan challenge that you think fits the bill, that's a little bit weird, a little off kilter, has good bones, but needs another shot at it, you can make a fan challenge, and you can do that in a myriad of places, but I prefer the email. But you can do it on our social media, at Invasion Remake on Twitter, Invasion of the Remake on Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok. And, of course, the email, invasionoftheremake@gmail.com.
Mm-hmm.
So make sure you follow us on all those social medias. And, you know, if you got an idea for a future episode, email me, let me know. And who knows, might become a future episode. Not too new, 20-year cutoff. And, you know, we don't need... like the best.
We don't need art.
Yeah, we don't need these grand movies that have won a lot of Oscars. We can't fix that.
And quite frankly, here's the thing. They're going to be remade anyway because people are going to want to make more money.
Yeah, we
don't care about that.
We want to target these movies you've never heard of that are kind of awesome and can still be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So go check this out. If you haven't watched this movie before and we've convinced you to do so, or if you haven't watched it yet, you know, it's always fun to watch these before we do these episodes. But if you haven't, you can find it on Shudder right now.
Yep.
Less legit way. You can find it on YouTube as well.
Yeah, but you can also buy or rent on YouTube. It's only $2.99.
Yep. Yeah, there's definitely other ways to do it. I think you can probably get it off of Apple TV as well that way as a rental.
I'm not sure. I want to say Plex. I could have been looking something else up.
Maybe. Plex will at least tell you where to look. if
Yes.
it's on a streamer. So I use Plex all the time just to find out where else to watch it because I don't want to watch it on Plex.
Yes. Too many ads.
This was great. I might even buy a copy of this one. This was something I could probably go back to and just analyze over and over again. I'm not done thinking about it.
I know.
Yeah.
Like there's almost a series in here, oddly enough. At a certain point, I was thinking that.
Yeah, there's all sorts of potential here. Why don't you help out the show too? You can let your friends and foes know about the show and tell them about the show, where to find it, help get more
earballs
on the show. Give us a 5-star rating and a short review over on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your podcasts. That helps too. And you can also help out the show by getting some IOTR merch. You can do that on our website,
invasionoftheremake.wixsite.com/podcast.
That's right. And over there, you'll see a button that says store. And over there, you can click. It'll take you to our TeePublic Store. Just click on that button and you can buy yourself t-shirts, mugs, posters, PPE masks, totes, notebooks, stickers, magnets, all sorts of cool stuff, even pillows with a choice of over 70 designs and more coming all the time. So that's another reason to follow us on our social media, because they might have a sale and we'll let you know when that is.
Absolutely.
But yeah, go check that out. Grab yourself something cool. It helps give us a little bit of financial support as well. It helps keep this show free for you every single week. And, show your love for the show. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Get yourself
if you
something
love
cool.
us, tell your friends. If you don't, nobody likes a tattletale.
All right. Well, I got one more hint for you next week.
Ooh.
We got a comparison coming up next week, so make sure you watch your kids and don't let them get lost in the maze. That is your hint. Until next week, I've been Jason.
I'm always Sam.
And I continue to be Trish.
And we are out of here.
All my life I felt so close to God. And it wasn't him after all.